Parapsychology Foundation presents PF International Affiliates Conference, New Faces in Parapsychology. And as you know, we're starting now, and we're running through 7:30 p.m. Eastern today on WizIQ. We have three speakers set up on Flores, who is up next, and you can see her in the video frame. Chongor Machi from Hungary, and Gabriel Teixeira de Medeiros, who is in the University of Sao Paulo. So this should be a very exciting day. So we're here in the second presentation of the day. We've just had our welcome to the event. And now I would like to introduce you to our speaker for this session. Ana Flores will be speaking on a new light on the replicability problem in parapsychology. Can non-local correlations be an answer? She's a PhD candidate at the University of Edinburgh, a member of the Cursor Parapsychology Unit, which is in the Department of Psychology at UE. She's a research fellow of the Bial Foundation in Portugal. She also holds an LLB and an MA in law, both awarded by the Universidade Autónoma of Lisbon, and has worked as a lawyer for a dozen years. She also obtained a diploma in psychology from the Universidade Lusófona de Lisboa, and an Master's of Science in Transpersonal Psychology and Consciousness Studies at the University of Northampton in England. And now she's obviously with Professor Caroline Watt, who recommended her very highly for this talk today. Her presentation, as I said, is about non-local correlations. She is part of an international consortium. She's reviewing her doctoral work, testing a new theoretical paradigm first developed by German physicist and scholar Walter von Lippert from the IGTC. So,
have I done all of this? Wow.
Here is your PowerPoint, and you can take it away. Ready to speak.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. So now I only see myself here, right? Yes, okay. So my topic today is about replication on parapsychology. And as you, let me just see, I changed the slide. Oh, alright, okay. So, replication is a huge issue on science, but basically on parapsychology. So I'm going to start by talking and by explaining a little bit what is replication. And after I'm going to explain how it fits in my work and the experiment that I'm replicating in this moment, and that is part of the international consortium. We are trying to find a new way of overcome the replication problem that is that parapsychology and also psychology has been dealing in the past years. So I'm going to talk about what is replication, why is that so important, and important enough to make a PhD on this topic, and also the consequences of the replication, the lack of replication. Yeah, this is quite different from being here just looking at the slides from when I'm looking at mine. Okay, sorry from this part. Okay, if you look at, if you open a dictionary and if you just look for a definition of replication, you can find definitions. Kind of replication is reproducing something, reproducing a phenomenon. But in terms of science, this is much more important than just reproducing something. In science, replication is an important tool, and is a tool that demonstrates facts in empirical sciences. It's a tool that allows some facts to be considered scientific, and it's very used on scientific fields to confirm results from experiments. So without the replication, we don't have what we consider reliable science. A definition of replication can be this one. As replication is a scientific method to validate experimental findings. Science is this. Science is when you have one fact, when we have something that happens to you, or that you experiment in you do in one experience, and after you have to validate what you found. And it's important that all researchers, other researchers in different places, in different universities, they can do the same and do the same experiment and get the same result. And that is what validates one experiment, validates one result, and allows this fact to be considered scientific and proved. So replication is a very important tool that we have to be able to use in parapsychology. I'm not going to talk about the problem that this is not replication. It's not an issue just in parapsychology. It has been an issue also in psychology. There was what it was called a crisis in psychology in the past few years, because it was understood that it wasn't possible to replicate all the findings that were published in mainstream journals of psychology. Parapsychology is suffering a little bit more with the difficulty in replicating the experiment, and this is very important for parapsychology to be able to affirm itself as a science, as a field recognized by mainstream science. So replication validates the experimental findings. Why is replication so important? Replication is a key issue for parapsychology, and the reason it's a key issue is that we intend to have parapsychology recognized by the mainstream science, and for that we have to be able to replicate the findings in different universities by different researchers. We have to get the same findings, and this is not it's not easy to achieve in our field. Replication is also important because it's linked with the idea of nature, and that nature behaves as a uniform way. In some way, science says that there are laws of nature, and because the laws behave in the same way, it's easy to replicate them, to repeat them. And so following this perspective, replication is important. On the other hand, it's replication that establishes, as I said a while ago, establishes the scientific fact when they produce successful results. And if you run one experiment and the result of that experiment is not successful, if you fail in prove your hypothesis, what you are told is that that fact is in doubt, so it's not proved as a real scientific fact. It's very important, replication, because replication allows that, or intends that, different researchers in different laboratories, they have to be able to demonstrate the same result. And that is the main issue on science. Anyone, anywhere, has to be able to replicate one experiment and to get the same result. This is the core of scientific approach for one topic, for one field. The consequences of lack of replication are the difficulty of accept one discipline as scientific. And in most cases, we are talking about parapsychology. Sometimes parapsychology is not well accepted among mainstream science because some experiments lack replication. On the other hand, one of the problems or one of the issues with the lack of replication is very proximate to the definition is the decline effect that is found on the experiment in parapsychology. This is when researcher runs one experiment for the first time, it's very often that he gets positive results, significant results in that experiment. But when someone else or even the same researcher repeats the same experiment, what he finds, or this is what has been happening, is that the decline of the results, the decline of the results of these experiments starting declining. The same experimenter can get always the same result every time he runs the same experiment. And this is strange. This shouldn't happen, or this doesn't happen in another field of science. For instance, in physics, what happens is when there's a finding, they can repeat over and over and over again the same phenomenon, even though they don't understand them, but they can repeat always the same. In parapsychology, it's not what happens. In parapsychology, the effect found can be significant once, but that doesn't mean that the next time the same researcher or other researcher is going to repeat the same experiment, even though they think that the conditions are exactly the same, even though the effect is not the same. So parapsychology debates with the problem of the decline effect when it's replicating experiments. The results decline, and sometimes even the results found initially in the first experiment even disappear with the same researchers. This happened in the past in some cases. So this topic of replication is crucial and very important and has to be tackled in order for parapsychology to get stronger influence among the scientific community, among the mainstream science, and that is what we all want. So, to address the question, parapsychologists have developed theories about the nature of psi, how to frame the phenomena, try to understand and to explain the circumstances under which psi manifests, and why psi is important, what is important for. So different theories have been developed in the past years to try to understand a little bit more about how we can frame and how we can understand the way psi manifests and how we can deal with it. So we can repeat it and we can use it. We can use it properly if we know what it is and how to frame it. So in answer to all of these questions, all of these issues related with the parapsychology, Walter von Lukadu came up in the 80s with a theory that with a new method to analyze the phenomenon of psi, and he called it correlation matrix method. And this method is supposed to be an answer to the replication problem and to the decline effect in parapsychology. And it's on this work that we are working now. My project and the matrix method is working now with psychokinesis. So it's looking at psychokinesis and trying to apply the methods on this phenomenon. For the ones who are not familiar with psychokinesis, psychokinesis is a direct mental interaction with the external physical processes that happen without any intermediate force. For the ones who watched the movie, The Matrix, and remember these scenes from the movie, it was quite interesting because the children was bending his mind was bending the spoon. And psychokinesis is exactly this. Psychokinesis is the phenomenon that mind interacts with the physical world without any intermediate cause in the middle that can explain what is happening. So basically, we can say that psychokinesis is a word that scientists came up with to define a phenomenon that they can't explain. And they don't know how to work with this phenomenon. I found this the most interesting explanation for psychokinesis. Where to define the phenomenon that scientists do not know how to explain. The psychokinesis was very well studied since the beginning of parapsychology. From early stages, scientists have tried to investigate how psychokinesis happens, and different experiments were developed to try to understand the process, and if they could prove that psychokinesis is real and exists. One of the examples and one of the experiments most studied was the experiment with the dice. Scientists asked participants to throw the dice and to mentally influence the numbers that they were going to get in the end. So there was a huge number of these experiments, and the results were very significant. But even though it wasn't enough for mainstream science to accept the phenomenon, because in reality we don't know how it works. Even if you influence, and even if statistically we have results that show that every time you throw the dice and there are you get the number you intended to get. You get the number more than above the chance. Even though skeptics keep saying that maybe that is luck, or maybe it was random, or maybe it was something else, because we still don't know how to explain how this phenomenon works. One example that is important to flag up is the studies conducted at the Fair Laboratory in Princeton University, where they ran an experiment with the random number generator and asked participants to produce more ones or more zeros. So the random number generator produces zeros and ones, and the researchers asked participants to produce more ones or more zeros, and compared with the results produced from the random number generator. And thank you, Carlos, for the for the reference. Even though skeptics couldn't find any flaw, any error in this experiment, because it was very scientific. It was done with a very scientific approach, with a method, and a scientific method was very, very accurate, and the results were significant. But even though skeptics didn't accept what they were looking at, sometimes it's difficult to accept what we don't understand. So, is the sound better now, Nancy? Okay. So after this topic, after the Fair Laboratory studied this psychokinesis, ran these psychokinesis studies, Walter von Lukaglu in the 80s decided to look at the data and he came up with one idea, with one explanation, to one theoretical model to explain the patterns that he observed in the pair's data. And he called this correlation matrix method, as I said a while ago. And again, this is the main topic, what we expect to be a solution for psychokinesis issue. So the correlation matrix method, what it does is basically it is based on the mind-matter interaction phenomenon, and it assumes that the phenomenon, the interaction between mind and matter, are produced by correlations. Correlation intertwined or entangled between the physical and the psychological systems, and they happen at a distance. This can seem a little bit complicated, I admit, but I think it's going to be easier for you to understand this concept when I explain the experiment and the way we developed the experiment. Well, Walter von Lukaglu developed the experiment. I am just replicating the same experiment. But basically, what he says is that the phenomenon, the interaction between mind and the physical world is produced by correlations, and the correlations can manifest at a distance. They are there are links between a physical system and the psychological system. So the mind can be linked with something that is at a distance, and they create a correlation and produce the phenomenon psi. So, next one. Before going through all the experiment and explaining in detail the experiment, I'd like to call this experiment and this paper because Walter von Lukadu is working, and his method is very linked with this theory. Attencher, Romer, and Wallach in 2002 came up with one idea of trying to, by analogy, to bring to the psychological world what it was known in quantum theory. So they just decided, or they just thought, well, we have this quantum theory that explains a lot of things and can be applied in different categories of life. Why not to bring it and to try to see how we can apply to these unexplained, weird phenomenon, psychological phenomena that are not explained yet? Why not to look at the quantum theory and see what is there that we can use to explain these paranormal phenomena? Probably these paranormal phenomena, as they reach to the conclusion, are not so paranormal in the sense that everyone has one experience, at least one experience in their life. So what is called the paranormal, maybe it's not so paranormal, but it's normal, but it's not explained. So quantum theory can be one help to explain what's happening. And Lukadu works also with, in his method, also works with these ideas of complementarity and entanglement that Wallach and Romer published in this paper. So two of these authors are physicists as well as Walter von Lukadu. So they are very familiar with the quantum world and the world of physics, and they also work in psychology. So they try to put together two different worlds and they try to get what is possible, what from quantum theory it's not just from the physics, but can be brought and applied to the psychological world. And so now we have a little bit about the correlation matrix method. The correlation matrix method is now we are just in the theory. I hope in a few seconds, in a few moments, you will understand a little bit more when I talk about the experiment itself. But just to contextualize all the concepts, because these are new concepts in psychology. So the matrix method uses one model that was also worked from beginning from von Lukadu. So von Lukadu came up with this model of pragmatic information to base and to give format to the method of the matrix correlation. So the concept that we are using to analyze the data from our experiment puts together concepts of complementarity and entanglement from generalized quantum theory. The other concept that is very, very important, and it's probably the most important in this new approach to explain the method, is the organizational closure. This concept of organizational closure comes from Francisco Varela. He wrote about this concept in 1981. And what this concept of organizational closure is basically that for psi to manifest, there's this need to exist one organization, and this organization has to be important, like a molecule. When it works, there are different components of the molecule that are part of each other, and they work together, and they are part of one organization. The same we can tell about cells or atoms, but the same happens with organisms and societies and families. If you have a relationship with a friend, you transmit important things. You transmit pragmatic information. Pragmatic information is important information. So when these organisms, these societies, these important structures, systems of life, when they are put together in an organizational system, and they put together pragmatic information, important information, they are creating something specific, something special. And is this organizational closure that von Lucadou defends that is the base to get psi, to frame psi, and is how we can find psi. Hope you are following me. I'm sorry if this part is a little bit... Oh, great, Nancy, thank you. Okay, the matrix method, and according to the quantum theory, it also assumes that psi is independent of any effect. So psi is time independent. It's not looking at the time, doesn't use watch, so it's something independent. The other thing that is very important in this method is that with this organizational closure, with this relation that it's put together when something important is to happen, and we can transmit important information. We can transmit what in physics is called entangled correlation, but we can't transmit final. This is technical, so I'm not going into that. I think it's not very important, and the time is running out, and I already have half an hour. All right. So, entanglement correlations cannot be used for signal transfer, but for causal link. And this says, in a very easy way, that we cannot make predictions in order to get psi. If we want to find psi, we can't predict where it's going to be and how it's going to be, because prediction is a final. Okay. So when we make a prediction, we are emitting a final, and that is not the correct way. So we just have to give space for psi to manifest. We have to give freedom for the correlations to bond together and to entangle and to create the phenomenon, to produce the phenomenon, the psi. So, right. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience. I don't think I need to have these slides because this one is boring. I'm just going to... Okay, let's go to this one. This one is the setup of all the experiment. We have the person, we give one instruction, we have the random number generator, we have the observer, we have the organizational closure. We need a dynamic between all the systems, and we need entanglement. But I think if you look at this slide, okay, I'm going to explain the experiment from this slide. It's much easier for you to follow. So the experiment, what we have is a random number generator. The random number generator is always working and creating random decisions. We plug the random number generator at the laptop, and we ask participants to come. Participants, when they arrive, we ask them to fill in a questionnaire. The questionnaire is not important in terms of information. It only has name, age, and a few demographics. And we just ask participants if they believe in psi, if they believe they can mentally to influence and to interact with the system. But it's not important. The importance about these questionnaires is that we want to create what I called a while ago the organizational closure. Organizational closure is what we can do in practice when the participant arrives in the lab, and we receive him and we talk to him and we start to engage him with the experiment and with the random number generator. We want the participant to create some links with the RMEG and with the experiment itself. So we explain the experiment to participants after he reads the experiment in a paper, and after when he goes to the laptop, he reads again on the screen everything about how it's going to be the experiment. And this helps the participant to create the organizational closure that we think, or that Wakadu proposes to be crucial to find or to see the psi effect. So what we ask the participant is to follow the instructions at the arrow. You see the arrow in top. You see the arrow. I'm trying to get. Oh, yes, exactly. Thank you, Nancy. Yes. The arrow on top of the screen. We ask participants to follow the instructions of the arrow. When the arrow is left into the left, we ask them to mentally to influence the red band. So when you look at this picture, you see this is what we call a fractal. So these red bands appear with a decision made by the random number generator. So the picture is all blue, and when the random number generator starts working, it starts making choices. When it chooses 0, the one red band goes to the left. If it chooses 1, the red band goes to the right, etc. So the bands, they move according to the decisions of the random number generator. But we ask participants to press the right key and the left key. We ask them to press the right key with the right hand and to press the left key with the left hand, and mentally influence the red band in the screen to move towards the direction of the arrow. What they don't know is that the pressing key is not making any effect on the decision of the random number generator. So the random number generator is working alone. It's programmed to work and to make its own choices randomly. If the band goes to left or right, it's a random process. There's nothing to do with the key presses. But we are using the key presses as the psychological variable that we want to analyze in the end when we are analyzing the data using the matrix method, the new methods to find phi. So we want to look at to see if participants can mentally to influence and interact with the random number generator. So the picture is just something to help. It's not doing much. So the experiment is made up of nine sets. So first time there's an arrow pointing to the left, after pointing to the right, and after there's a rumble. And at that time, participants should try to influence the red band just to keep centered, not to move much to the right or to the left. Of course, this is a random process, but we are expecting to see the effect of the mental influence of the participant on the process. So after we have another, this is another picture just for you to have an idea of what participants are looking at. And this process can take, the whole experiment can take between 10 to 20 minutes. And it's not much. It most depends on the attention, on the absorption participants have on the process, and also if they prefer to spend time to trying to mentally to influence the process, or if they just play this as a game. So as you see, the red band moves till the end and comes to the beginning, and there's nine times, so nine directions. First, left, right, center, and this repeats 3 times. So the participants do the experiment, this part 9 times. So we have plenty of data to analyze. The variables that we collect from participants, that are the psychological variables, are the number of press runs and also the time participants take to press the keys. the physical variables are all measured from the random number generator, of course. We have, in the end, we have 2025 correlations to analyze, because we correlate all key phrases from participants. We correlate them in the end, all psychological variables to all physical variables. So we have 5 psychical variables and 5 physical variables. Time 9 runs per session. In the end, we have 2025 cells with information to see if the entangled correlations appeared and where they appeared. So this is what we have in the end. This is the matrix that I was telling you about. So we have in the top, we have all the psychological variables and the physical variables, and in the left side, I don't have pointer. And in the left side, yeah, we have the psychological variables, and each one of them, each psychological variable is going to correlate with one physical variable. So we have here plenty of freedom. That Nancy is pointing now is the present moment when the participant is doing the experiment. Those are the correlations created in the present moment. All the correlations, all the cells above that, those rectangulars are the future correlations, the correlations that happen to the future, and the ones below are the ones that are correlations with correlated the future physical variables correlated with past variables. Yeah, that already happened in the beginning of the experiment. So this is one example for you to see. The red cells are the strong correlations. The yellow different values that we found here. But I'm not going into the formulas, and there's no need for that. So now what we have here in the next slide is the result from my first replication. Okay. If we look at the superior part, I'm going to show again the previous slide. So all the cells that are in the superior part of these rectangles that are what we call the future. Exactly. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. There we have 900 cells. So 900 correlations. We are expecting that if we have 900 cells, we expect that by chance we just have 90 significant correlations. And I'm going to go back with one thing because I completely forgot. I'm going to explain how we run the control session. So I explained to you that the experiment is run with the participant when the participant is in front of the computer pressing the keys and trying to influence mentally the random number generator in the same in the same following the arrow, the position of the arrow. How do we run the control session? Easy. We just take the psychological information from the participant and we collate that information to the program, and the computer runs with the random number generator and with the psychological information from the participant. The computer runs the program alone. No one in the room. The screen is covered with, I just put the program to run, and the computer runs the experiment alone, with no participant looking at the screen, looking at any information. So we have here the CD, the control time correlation, and we have in the first one the experimental significant correlation. We have a huge number of significant correlations that come up from this experiment. With the p-values that we got, the correlations are very high and above chance. Even the control correlations are not so different from, in this case, not so different from the by chance, but a little bit. But the experimental correlation, the significant correlations from the experimental session are huge. We got the Z that is highly significant, but I have to say that this Z is just a value. It's this, to this experiment, it's not this Z is not the best way, the best statistic to use. But because the model is new, we are still working on getting the right statistical methods to evaluate. We are working now in an international consortium, and we have statisticians, physics, we have different scientists from different backgrounds to help us to come up with the perfect or the best way to analyze this data, because it's not expected, or maybe it is expected, but it's not normal for you to get this kind of differences when you are performing one experiment in front of the computer, and you are there just looking at the computer and you are pressing the keys, but the press of the keys is not doing anything. It's not interfering with our energy. So why do we have different results from when the participants are in front of the computer than when the computer is running on its own? So, and these are the differences. These are the values. Now I'm going to show you these are the numbers just from the top superior of the graphic. Now I'm going to show. Okay, this is the entire matrix, where we have 2025 cells, and by chance we only expect to have 202 significant correlations, or if we have the p-value of 0.001, we don't even expect to have significant correlation. But in the experimental session, we found 21 significant correlations. So this means that when participants are in front of the computer, there is something going on. What is going on, we don't know. But this method, just by correlating all psychological variables with all physical variables and give freedom for them, for the phenomenon to manifest, allowing us to get these results from other experiments. What we found was that the correlations are still there, but they manifest in different cells. For instance, if I show you again this slide where you see the red and the yellows, these are the results in this experiment, but in a different experiment with significant discourse, we get the significant correlations in different cells, not in the same cell. But the novelty of this experiment, of this method, the correlation matrix method, is that we giving freedom for the phenomenon to manifest and to show itself, we can find significant results. We can see the differences. We just can't predict where it goes to manifest. We can say that the correlation is going to appear in the first round, the psychological variable with the second round of the physical variable, because we don't know. We don't know where the correlations are going to appear. And the correlations are the non-local correlations that seem to be somewhere and manifesting in some way that we still don't know how to explain. But as part of the member of this new consortium, I expect that after the new study that we are putting together, and we are going to run in, I think, 7 different universities all over the world, in different countries, different universities, different researchers, but we are going to run at the same time, and data is going to be analyzed at the same time. And I expect that the consortium and that new study brings new light, because this method till now seems to be very, very promising. Very promising. And for today, it's all. So thank you for your time. I think it took me 1 hour. Yeah, I'm on time. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for listening to me. Sorry if you didn't understand. Sometimes my accent is not, and I get excited with this. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, glad it wasn't boring.
Not at all. More about National Consortium?
Oh, yes. Harold Wallach is the main organizer from this consortium, and he's working with von Lukadu, and we have at the moment around 10 universities, 12 universities, but I think till now only 7 are going to collect data. But we already had a meeting, and we are writing the protocol, and hopefully we start collecting data in August, maybe, if everything goes right. So we are around 20 people working in the same project, and working and try to replicate again these experiments to see how it works.
A, the other
Yes, we have University of Nantes, Amsterdam. We have Dean Radin from Ions. It's not the university. We have Freiburg University, and we have two more universities from Germany. We have two universities in the United States. We have Jessica Utz working with us. We have, oh my God. We have in one university in Paris. We have in Oslo. Sorry. Can't, Okay, I see that there's a lot of questions going on here, but I'm missing them from the beginning. So sorry, I couldn't understand. I'm trying to go there and to read. No.
Right, God is very right edge of that.
Oh, okay. The manufacturer of the random number generator. Okay, the random number generator was set up by Mukadu. He's working in this method for 30 years now, and he tried different random number generators. This one has a specific program. It's called the Markov chain random number generator, and it's smooth in terms of changing the band. Changing the band, it's a very easy way. When you are looking at it at the screen, you can just press and see just one band to change, and it's not. It was considered by them to be the most reliable random number generator. But this is one of the things that we are going to change in the next experiment. We are going to have new random number generators, more modern, and they are going to be set up by other researchers. So, because there's always that question, or maybe the random number generator is producing the phenomenon. The thing is, this experiment was replicated by Walter van Lucadou. It was replicated also in Netherlands and by Harald Wallach, and now by me. So we all got significant results. So once the random number generator was set up anew, it was re-engineered anew with the same methodology. So it seems that there is no problem at all because experts should know about it, right? I'm just using the random number generator that was used previously. So I just trust the random WMG.
Dr. Bierman as a speaker last year, and he also mentioned the consortium. But what Doug is saying in response to your answer is that Peter Bonsell, who's speaking this year in our course, noticed that the Orion RNGs were much more responsive than Mindsong in the global consciousness experiment, and it had something to do with different XOR filters. I'm afraid I don't understand that. But I was wondering if Dr. Bonsell and his university are involved.
Okay, I am not an expert on RNAGs, and that was one of the questions that was raised in our last meeting at the consortium. And it seems that some authors, some of the researchers, they say that can be an issue, but the others say that it's just an excuse. So I just keep on my space about that because I can't answer because it's not my field of expertise. It's not.
Ricardo, I think it was asking, are there any difficulties or problems connected to either the running of the statistics or the interpretation of the statistics? And I know you mentioned that that's an issue that is being brought up in the consortium.
Yes. There is one issue that to analyze the data and to get a true Z, you have to have independent variables. And we discussed if the variables we are analyzing, if they are completely and truly independent. And we couldn't reach a conclusion about that. So we decided not to consider these values true Z, but just a number that shows differences. So we have to come up to a consensus on that. So if someone doesn't agree that the Z and the formula is the best one, we have to try and to reach another one. What Lucadou defends and as a physicist, and as well as the other physicists that are part of this consortium, is that if you can see the results just by looking at the differences, you don't need statistics to explain anything. And it's how it works in physics. And Lucadou, he is a physicist. So what he says is, we don't need statistics because just by running the two experiments, experiment and the control, we call control, but it's another experiment, right? So when just by running the two experiments, we can see a huge difference. So what kind of statistics is more suitable? We are letting that to the statisticians that are part of the consortium. And I do believe that even though we get more results, there always will be someone come up with saying, oh, I don't agree because of this and that. So we have experts. I'm reading Ricardo Marcelo Correa question about experts in statistics. What are their opinions? Yeah, their opinion was just this one. This Z it's not probably not the most appropriate, or it's not unquestionable. We can come up with doubts about it, but it shows differences. Yeah,
I think what in the consortium, besides the theoretical and the technical issues, is that you have a multi-interdisciplinary group who speak different languages and take different types of evidence as being believable, persuasive, and so on. So you have this extra layer of resource that you have to deal with as well, and that's actually, it's both difficult as it's happening, I'm sure, and wonderful in the outcome because you get to a sort of cross-scientific discussion.
Oh yes,
of how to handle.
Yes, definitely. The only no is that it's a slow process. It's a slow process, but it's very, very rewarding. We learn a lot because everyone has a different experience. Everyone has a different background, and in the end, all of them are interested in the same topic. So I believe that we are going to reach a consensus and to to get somewhere with this. I think so.
Yeah, and I think that's very positive. It's also very interesting to see that stark difference, though, between results and the results, and that only intention and the presence of a human being in front of the computer is the determining variable for those differences. That's Beth.
Yeah, exactly.
Michael was asking about Monte Carlo simulations, if you've done that.
Oh, I did. The results they lowered a little bit, even though they are still significant. Not these values, but yes. But we are still discussing how we are going to run the Monte Carlo. If we are going to run the Monte Carlo in each cell, or if we are just going to run the Monte Carlo in the final results. So it's going. We are still discussing how we are going to do that. But yes, that is one of the points that was I think it was the point that brought more consensus, except with the physicists who say they don't need statistics.
Like those raw conceptual experiences where they can see.
Yes.
Ryan is following up on Michael's comment and saying it makes a good the permutation type analysis into simple Z-score analyses. And then Brian is from Psychical Research Foundation Laboratory in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in the U.S. And he's saying there they do many different
Monte Carlo. Yeah, Monte Carlo analysis.
Yep. And then,
yes, but I'm sorry to interrupt. One of the things with the Monte Carlo is that Lucado, who is just to answer, to reply to this one. One of the points about running the Monte Carlo is that Lucado, who is the one who came up with this method, he says that he argues that Monte Carlo kills the effect, and it says it's not it's a good statistical tool for other topics, but not for this one, because this one has the non-transmission axiom that he argues that kills or disappears running the Monte Carlo. But this is a lot of physics, so I have to keep with the psychology and with the replication and try to understand what makes sense in the middle of all of these. Okay, let me see. There's one more question.
Actually, Ed and I were discussing the feedback from my...
Okay. There's no more questions for my...
Let me thank you again. You've done a marvelous job. Oh, we'll go back. Carlos has one just a second. If he wants to know, can we slide?
Oh, yes, it works very well. I'm going to send you the link from Lucado explaining these methods applied to poltergeist, because he is expert in poltergeist. Lucado. I'm going to send straight away the link, and maybe you can post it. And it's a very nice presentation from Luca Du explaining these methods applied to poltergeist. Yes.
Well, wonderful. I just want to say then thank you very much for, Yanni, would you put in a description of that particular YouTube video that you put in our chat? But I want to thank you, Anna, for taking a very difficult topic and making it understandable for those of us who aren't physicists, and for energizing the physics, both physicists and the physics and of course people who love physics. I think we've all been very, very excited about your work. So this is a wonderful presentation, and thank you so much.
No, it was my pleasure. I really had fun, honestly. It was very, very, very interesting. I hope you have another one soon.
We will undoubtedly have more. Yeah, Anastasia Damalis is actually Lisa Coley and Anastasia, and they're saying,
okay,
we'll be looking for more.
Thank you. Thank you for it. Okay, I have here the link, and I'm going to post. Thank you all for attending.
Hi there, I'm Lisa Coley. I'm president of Parapsychology Foundation. So welcome to our YouTube channel. We have lots to look at, so please check out our videos. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.